Hey, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of A Few Short Minutes, the pod, where I just like to remind you it takes just a few short minutes a day of mindfulness, of meditation, of breath, pick your modality, in order to physically rewire your brain for a better life. You guys, today I've got Irena Polyakova, and she is a dating coach. And so let me tell you a little bit about Irina because she has an amazing story behind her. She got married at 23 and she maintained building a healthy and enduring relationship. And so the marriage fell apart after 5 years. And then she got married again, and that one lasted 12 years. And she recognized the need for radical change in how she approached this relationships with herself and with others. So she fell into a pit of unhappiness and dissatisfaction, as we all have done in our relationships. And it left her yearning for a genuine connection, but not knowing how to reach a genuine connection. So she didn't have healthy relationships as a model growing up. And she thought love and relationships would just manifest it if she just simply waited. She was sold the fairy tale that we were all sold growing up. That actually isn't true, right? Your Prince Charming doesn't come riding up on a white horse and sweep you off your feet and solve all your problems. So on 2014, she embarked on her own transformative journey, and she actively required the skills to understand herself and her desires. And it took years, as it does. But she navigated this path alone, and she learned that you don't have to do this alone, which is the whole point of coaching. And so in the last couple of years, she can tell you herself, her life has been upended, and she's managed to come through and create a dating program for men. And so, Irina, you introduce yourself and talk about the last few years for you, because I can't do it justice.
Thank you so much, Stacy. You did pretty good justice. It's interesting for me to hear somebody else talk about me. It's different. It sounds different in my head. So,
Yeah, it's weird,
but
right?
thank you so much for having me on this podcast. And so my journey started in 2001 as I arrived here. And as you righteously so mentioned, that I got married the first time, 23, having the fairy tale. I've gone through 2 marriages now, 2 divorces. Just realized that this is very important, crucial element is that I was the common denominator of those 2 marriages that ended for certain reasons. So it just, when I did start my transformative journey in 2014, it required some really, really deep dive into soul searching and really sitting with the fact that, hey, I am the reason. And the catalyst to that was actually having kids in my second marriage. And I realized, like, I've got a daughter and a son. What kind of relationship skills do I want to give them if I don't have the relationship skills, if I am unhappy? So that was kind of the catalyst to it, to my own transformation. And there is a reason behind my passion in particular for helping men. And I will elaborate on that just a little bit later, but there's absolutely personal reason behind that. But as of right now, as of today, I'm absolutely proud that I haven't only gone through all of the difficulties and hardships that I did have, and life had quite a few challenges, significant challenges. I'm not only proud of overcoming them, but actually taking all those learned lessons and now making them into wisdom with which I'm able to coach people and help them walk this path not alone, because I was stubborn. I was doing it alone because I was stubborn, because my vision was like, I'm going to secretly do therapy and coaching, and then ta-da, I'm all perfect. So people would never know me, that I struggled. People would never see that I suffered. And this is one of the biggest mistakes that I made in my entire life. That's why it took me years. It does not take years. It can take a few months. Now, what I can see while I'm coaching somebody else. So, too many people suffer in silence, suffer quietly, assuming that they are the only ones with those struggles, whatever they are. When in reality, we all have struggles,
It's
right?
yeah.
So at
Most
the
of
end
us
of the
have the same
day, if
struggles.
we just embrace, yes, if we just embrace that fact, it's like, hey, look at me, I'm not perfect. What about your imperfections? Let's compare imperfections instead of comparing ourselves to some kind of Instagram uh, post, right? But we're not really taught that. So my mission is to truly focus on helping people um, acquire the skill of shifting away from the comparison to something perfect that simply does not exist, and truly embracing your own emotional wounds, your own challenges that make you you, and then turning that into a superpower, turning that into a dating superpower. As I when I invite men to into my coaching program, I always tell them, it's like, you have the dating superpower, we just got to uncover it. So here I am helping them develop their dating superpower that consequently will lead into a fulfilling relationship.
Yeah, I love that because you're so right. We suffered in silence, thinking we were the only ones, or we didn't want to show weakness when actually vulnerability is one of the bravest things and the strongest things that you can do. But I love that if anybody knows about my story, if you've guys watched some previous episodes, we both became the coaches we needed back then in some
Exactly.
way, shape, or form.
Exactly.
And I can't even imagine if I had had some version of me 10 years ago, 15 years ago, what my life would have looked like in my struggles. It would have been compacted and done with a lot sooner instead of, taking 10 years to have these awakenings of whatever epiphanies, these life uh, yeah, these life struggles, and then you see the reason for them at the end. The last 2 years, 2 years ago, your life looked a lot different than it does right now, too. So, talk about even being through healing and coaching and on that path. Even that wasn't enough to save you 2 years ago from more upheaval and tumultuous living. Would you talk about what happened 2 years ago?
Absolutely. So I arrived as an Ukrainian immigrant. I arrived to the United States initially in 2001. And that was a very scary experience. And in 2014, me and my second husband at the time, we had decided that we are going to move out of the United States. And we sold everything. We packed up suitcases, and we had already two kids at the time, and we moved to Austria. Uh, and we decided to stay in Europe. And that was the goal, to kind of stay there forever. Like that was our home. So rather quickly upon arrival there, I started realizing, just quietly in my mind, started realizing that my marriage was not going exactly the way I was envisioning. And I kept sweeping under the rug for a little bit. I was not still yet ready to admit to myself that, okay, it's really not working. And in parallel to that, the kids really enjoy the life in Austria. I truly, truly enjoy the life in Europe. And I think my mentality is just a little bit closer to that pace of life there. And 2 years ago, I've learned that I cannot get the permanent residency. And the immigration issues had forced me and two kids. I was already divorced at that time. Me and two kids to go back to the States where I really did not want to be. There was a reason why I left, and I'm not going to elaborate on this right now. But it just felt like the rug was just kind of pulled from under me and my kids and the whole family. I had a business in Europe. I had to drop my whole business, go without income, and move to another country and start over once again. I've already started over a couple times before that. So when I arrived here, I had quite a few pity parties, quite a few. There were quite a few nights when I literally cried myself to sleep because I was mad at the whole world. And I was mad at the world, and then I was mad at myself because how is it that I am healing, I am aware, I am mindful, I'm meditating, I have all of these tools at the tip of my fingers, and yet I'm still feeling like I'm a dark hole right now. So that was 2 years ago. officially it's going to be next month, as it's been 2 years. And after quite a few pity parties, I got my shit, excuse my language, together, and I
No, please,
decided
by all means.
I'm just gonna have to start over once again. And I've started a business. I've turned the coach, and that was my hobby and a passion in Europe. That's where I started. I've turned it into a full-time business. I had written a book in 2023 and published it by the end of the year. I think I wrote a book in like 3 months. And I've built pretty much from the zero up. I did have some support of close people to me, financial support was at the beginning, for what I will be forever grateful. But I did it. I truly did it. So as I finished writing my book, um, in my last chapter, I'm realizing that I think I had written a book for myself. I was writing it for somebody else, but it ended up being for me to really focus on what I had been going through in a positive sense of things, instead of looking for imperfections that I mentioned earlier. So this had been my 2 year journey, and my decision to become a relationship and dating coach all stemmed from something that I had always had a passion for a person's mind, for how our minds work, why we do what we do. And relationship and dating is where many of us struggle, due to the fact that we have a big misconception, as you noted earlier, that the love will just manifest in our lives, that the prince on a white horse is not going to walk through the door, or princess, or it's not going to be delivered as an Amazon package. Like, hey, here is your date, right? That would be amazing. But it is a skill set. It's a skill set. This is something that we have to change the mentality that we just wait to find love. No, you stay proactive to make that happen. You don't wait. That's why I'm so passionate about it.
Yeah, no, I love that. Um, so talk a little bit about why you chose men to focus on in your coaching program, and what that kind of yeah, talk about men as why you chose to work with men in coaching practice, and then I've got some questions after that.
Yes, absolutely. So we have nowadays, we have an abundance of information out there on YouTube, on Instagram, excuse me, anywhere, right? We are very lucky to have access to this information. There is so much buzz around emotional availability and mindfulness, and there are so many tools available, which is absolutely fantastic, right? But yet we still have tons of people who, even though they can have access to this information, they don't quite know what to do with all of that. They get overwhelmed. And the challenge is, in my opinion, is that we have so much programming running in the background here, that even though we see a theory of something that looks so nice and shiny and new to us, and it's like, oh, we're going to do it, but guess what? The programming stops us from doing it the right way, to truly turn it from just a theory into a wisdom, internalized wisdom. So when it comes to man, I believe, this is just my opinion, of course, from my observations and my experiences with men in my life, is that their program is even harsher and hotter. A few years ago, I got a phone call, and I was told that my dad tried to commit a suicide. He did not succeed. That was a few years ago. When I got on the phone with my dad, and he cried to me, and he said that I just felt completely invisible. I just felt completely unloved. I had no idea. I did not see that coming, because my dad is he's very positive. He's always joking around. Like, he is such a pleasure to be around. He's just the joy of the company when you're next to him. So when that happened, that shocked me to the core. And I realized, like, oh my God, he suffered for so long quietly, in complete silence. And he's in a relationship with my mom. My mom is a wonderful, wonderful person, but she's emotionally completely broken and traumatized due to her own severe abuse from childhood that she never managed to heal. So this incident put things in perspective for me, that we see a man, we see a strong facade, but then on inside there's so much accumulated pain that we don't see, and they are taught constantly not to show it. Boys don't cry, man up, suck it up. I have a 12-year-old son, he's almost 13, who happens to be an extremely sensitive soul. When he was smaller, he would cry a lot, he would be reacting quite strongly, having a lot of overwhelming emotions. And one time I was visiting with my kids, it was my parents before war started in my home country of Ukraine. And I heard my mom saying, "Boys don't cry. What are you doing crying?" And I was like, this is where it's coming from. Boys don't cry, right? This is why my dad tried to commit suicide. So experiencing this with my dad and looking at my 12, almost 13-year-old son, and having a partner now, and having two ex-husbands, and just interacting and having men in my life, friends and everything, I've noticed there's a pattern. They can't really make themselves easily emotionally available. So my passion for first making them realize that it is okay to be emotional when you are a man, because if you are not emotionally available, meaning that you are able to observe somebody else's emotions with compassion, and at the same time you are able to share yours, when this crucial element is present, then you are able to be in relationship in a much more fulfilling and happier, healthier way. So my passion around helping men um, developed due to realizing that suffering is in silence is killing. The suicide rate, at least here in the United States, suicide rate among men is 4 times higher than women. And this is very high. And we don't embrace, we don't open up the space for them. And they feel weak if they were to express the emotions. So this is my reasoning behind why I tend to be quite passionate about helping men.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing that. Um, Again, for those who've seen a couple of episodes, they know I lost my brother in that manner. And so I think truly he thought he was saving us from his trauma and from the drama he was causing. And because he was, mentally not healthy and an addict. And so I know what that feels like. And I would not wish that feeling on my own worst enemy ever. Ever. It is devastating. And so thank you for sharing that. And I'm so glad that your dad is still here because that took a lot of guts. That took a lot of guts for him to stay. Um, I want to go back to something that you said because I think that this is the harsh reality and the first step that any of us need to take in the healing process. And that's getting really fucking honest about our place in failed relationships or are placed in whether they're platonic or familiar or romantic or business related. That was really difficult for me, is to look and go, I'm the common denominator, and really get honest about how I have contributed to these relationships not working out for the best, or choosing maybe not the right person for me to be involved with, because again I was operating from a space of wanting to be rescued versus being whole in myself. And so what was that like for you, getting really honest, going, okay, I'm the common denominator here?
Phew, it was excruciatingly painful. I mean, physically, mentally, emotionally, on all levels. As a matter of fact, when I came to my very first therapy session many years ago, I came with a list of questions. And I told my psychologist, I said, I have a list of questions. I'm paying you this much money. I'm expecting the answers, and I'm fine. I just need one session and I'm good. Right. So she just kind of chuckled at me. She's like, yeah, we're not going to be answering any whys here. I'm like, I'm paying you. I'm like, what the heck? Like, I just need answers. As soon as I have answers, I'm fine. So didn't happen that way. So it took me quite a few years. I did do therapy for quite a while, and then I switched to coaching, and I did energy healing, and I had to do hypnotherapy as well because some of the trauma was so deep that I could not process it consciously. I had to go
Yeah.
into subconscious mind, and I did heal. Absolutely, I did heal. But getting to the point of sitting with yourself and truly saying, was like, yeah, you contributed. You contributed to the. I don't like calling relationships failed, actually, personally, because I
Okay.
believe that if there is a learning lesson, I don't think it failed.
I
I do not
agree.
have any regrets about either my first marriage or my second marriage. Both of my
Mhm.
ex partners, yes, there are challenges. There were challenges. We have different personalities, absolutely. But these two marriages, like two that ended, like they made me into who I am right now, sitting in front of you, right? So I
Yeah.
am grateful for the opportunity of growth, right? For me to go deep into accepting me as a contributor to that meant to help, and by that I mean to help my kids, as I already shared plenty about my son, to help understand, to help myself understand my parents, because I spent many years marinating in the bitterness of how they didn't love me enough because, well, my parents did the best they could with their own given resources. They grew up in the Soviet Union regime where you just had to worry about putting food on the table and having clothes on. Okay, I got all the
Yeah.
bases covered. Did I feel loved? No, I did not feel loved. Did they know how to express love? They did, with the abilities and the skill set that they had themselves, right? So for me, being able to help others and create a ripple effect, that's what kind of prompt me to do that. By ripple effect, I mean that if I just make changes within myself, and if I manage to instill some of this wisdom into my kids, especially my son, he will not raise his own children the way my parents raised me. And this is the ripple effect that I'm talking to. If I'm able to change at least one life, to help at least one person somehow, whether it's my kids, my parents, friend, or coaching clients at this time, it's a ripple effect. And this is what made me to solidify my idea of truly pursuing the passion of coaching and teaching this wisdom.
Yeah, absolutely. I think coaches don't understand to the degree of which helping one person affects literally hundreds, down the line and later, because it's all so connected. And that's such an honor to be a part of. That's one reason that I love coaching too, is to be a part of changing these generational traumas that we've experienced for whatever reason. Growing up in a Soviet regime, I can't even imagine what that was like for your parents, let alone you, and continuing that generational trauma. But now you've decided to break it because you're parenting differently in the hopes that your kids will also parent differently. Um, and so I think that's something to absolutely be commended. How do you help your guys get really honest about their role in their relationships? Do you ask them questions? Do you kind of, you know, like
No,
have them.
actually, I don't ask a lot of questions at the beginning, because questions, especially I've noticed, especially with men, because I do coach both men and women. I just have a bit of a different angle and different type of passion towards coaching men due to the personal reasons. And I've
Sure.
noticed that men, they're not very keen to answer a lot of questions at the beginning. So when it comes to connecting, to truly developing that rapport with men, so they would be open to coaching, is by sharing my own fuck ups, by
I love
sharing
it.
my own struggles, by
I love it.
sharing how I contributed to the relationships that ended somehow? What am I doing differently now that is allowing me to be in a healthy partnership? That I'm 45, I'll be 46 this year, and it took me this many years to finally go, I know how it's done, right? And I'm not ashamed of it. Would it be great if if I knew this 20 years ago?
Yeah, of course.
Absolutely. I probably would have still been married to my first husband, but that's not what my soul journey is supposed to be. So here I am, 45. I'm very wise. I'm very smart when it comes to how to do the relationship. So essentially, me putting myself in the most vulnerable light in front of this man and then giving them compassion is what really helps them to open up and understand that, hey, I can open up. It's okay if I have some suffering going on. So it's a process. It's
Yeah.
not magic pill, because if I had a magic pill, I'd be a billionaire. Need
Yeah.
some work to do for sure.
I love that. I think there's a lot of power in sharing your own fuck ups because it does lead to normalization for other people. That's why I love group coaching for that particular reason, is because, if you've got an introvert and an extrovert, the extrovert asks
Yes.
what the same problem that the introvert's been feeling. Well, they got their question answered and they didn't have to speak up and, be scared to do that. And so I love that normalization for people. And again, it breaks that myth that we are all suffering, we're the only ones in the world suffering with this particular problem. We always feel like we're the only ones, and it's not true. It's so
No,
not true. And
not
I think
true.
that isolation allows it, well, it's preservation of that thought pattern, right? Because if you think you're the only one, then you're not gonna um talk about it and dig into it. And so that thought pattern gets to stay because you're too embarrassed to share it out loud. You're the only one that thinks about this. And that's just so not true. And so I love that you share your stuff first and make it a safe space for them to go, okay, here's how I'm relating to what you said, and starting to open up that way. It's important for people as a whole, um, but in particular what you do with men, to have that safe space of the non-judgmental um, area, right? What is your favorite thing about what you do now with the current program you're running and the guys that you're attracting to help? What do you see common, like, theme running through the guys that you've helped lately?
Well, I would say my favorite theme would be seeing this man starting to believe that change is possible, and starting to believe one of the most critical things, that confidence is not something you're born with, that confidence comes from competence. And competence we acquire through building a set of skills and abilities. And I always tell them, like, listen, when you were little, you started to crawl. You did not know how to walk, and then you walked, and then you learned how to ride a bike, and you still know how to ride a bike, right? So I'm like, it's the same way in dating and relationship. You have to learn. We're not taught in schools or by our parents in most cases how to relationship. We are not. I have a teenager in high school. I'm looking at their curriculum. I hope I'm not going to get in trouble for saying this, but I'm sorry, it's crap. Like, there is no life skills in there.
Nope.
Is she gonna use is she gonna use math and algebra in her relationship? Probably not. Is she
No.
gonna use her languages, like foreign languages, in communicating emotional emotions? Probably not. I am
Right.
not saying that what they're learning is not needed. It's just insufficient in equipping a young person with relationship skills, conflict addressing skills, communication skills. So they go in and they start with the foundation, with the right one, not like trial and error like I did. It took me 20 years to figure out how to relationship, right?
Yeah.
So, but I'm not sure our society is set up this way. So I loved the fact that you said you used the word normalization. This is exactly what I'm doing. And this is exactly what I'm loving the best, the most about my coaching and in my approach is normalizing the fact that first of all, nobody's perfect. Second of all, you are different on any given day. Just because you had an awesome day today and you feel pretty good about yourself, guess what? It's quite possible that tomorrow you're gonna feel down for whatever reason. And when you feel down, you're gonna have to make a choice. Do you go into this self-criticism or do you go, okay, well, we're just gonna say it's a shitty day today. I'm just gonna let myself feel like this and tomorrow's gonna be better. And there are tools that I can apply to feel better tomorrow. So, normalization of the fact that we are different on any given day, depending on what's going on, is also very, very important. And this is a theme that absolutely runs through the coaching programs that I do. And I constantly emphasize on the fact is like, listen, this is how I explain. We're going to make 2 steps forward, and then we'll probably make 3 steps back. And then there's going to be another step forward, and then there's going to be 2 steps back. And then we're going to be making 5 steps forward and 1 step back. And it's always like that. It's not a straight line, it's not linear, it's not from A to B. And this is something that a lot of people struggle with, but that's also the biggest and the funnest challenge to tackle.
Yeah, absolutely. So what are some tools that you teach in your programs?
In my programs, I use quite a bit of cognitive behavioral techniques. So we're doing a lot of journaling, a lot of writing. We're doing a lot of inventory of thinking patterns, especially for people that struggle with quite a bit of self-criticism. And I think most of us, I think it's safe to say that we do have certain self-talk that's typically negative. So we truly try to dismantle those and literally replace them. um, I have this method that I call this mirror exercise for those that have certain challenges with self-esteem, whether it's their appearance, physical appearance, and whatnot. I have them put the timer on, get undressed, stand in front of the mirror, and truly look at yourself. And then
Woo.
once they're done with that mirror exercise, they have to write out the thoughts that were racing through their mind. And if they write it out, and if it's overwhelmingly negative, they have to tear it up and throw it away. And this is probably one of my most favorite methods. And I have men and women do this. For women, actually, this one is probably even the more uncomfortable because we love to criticize our bodies. So, but
Yeah.
there is definitely progress. And this is daily exercise. It's just one of the methods. I do employ quite a bit of positive intelligence method when we do PQ exercises, meaning that I teach them to get out of their head and get grounded in their physical body. And as you mentioned at the beginning, rewiring our brains, teaching our minds different pathways and seeing different scenarios around us is what truly gets us to the success in dating and forming that fulfilling relationship that we truly really want. So a lot of mind works. This is where it starts.
Yeah, I got immediate anxiety when you're talking about the mirror exercise.
Yeah.
Immediate. I was like, "Oh, I wanna throw up right now." So, I guess that
It's
tells me
so
what I need to
simple though,
do.
right? It's so simple because we look in the mirror, we brush our teeth, but do you really look?
Yeah.
Because if it's more than a few seconds, that's where it gets uncomfortable. And most of us, we're not grounded in our bodies. We truly are not. So, and this is also connects to when you said, how do you go, well, change it. So I did a certain variation of this exercise years ago. Um, and it was hard. And it was hard. Like, I'm in pretty good shape. Physically, I've always been training. So, but I still, all I could see is flaws. right? And it's just like, and I know some other people would look at me, it's like, what are you talking about? And I would be like, oh, let me show you. Let me show you my stretch marks. Let me show you my cellulite, because I've got plenty, right? And it truly takes the guts to look at yourself and befriend yourself, and then replace the thoughts that going through our minds with whether it's PQ exercises from positive intelligence concept or meditation. I work my clients through a lot of visualization. We do guided visualizations, and I custom tailor record visualization based on their own personal experience, so they can just put the headphones in and listen in. So a lot of rewiring going on for sure, because if they don't become friends with themselves, they can't truly connect to somebody else.
Yes.
Interpersonal intimacy starts with mastering self intimacy always.
Go down that line for a minute and kind of like show what some common relationship issues are that lead back to the not befriending myself. Can you draw that visual for us about how, if you don't have, intimate relationships with yourself, how that affects your relationships later? How does that show up symptomatically?
Absolutely. It shows up in many shapes and forms, but the most typical, I would say, is when we connect to somebody, and let's say there is a certain physical chemistry. So we're kind of drunk on the hormones at the beginning, on the chemicals. We've got the oxytocin flowing, the dopamine is there helping us feel like, oh my God, this is, we're in love. Great. But guess what? The chemicals are going to wash out, the butterflies are going to fade away, and the real life is going to start. So this is where the real life, when it starts, that's where the trouble usually starts in relationship. When, let's say, um, your partner's supposed to come home at this hour, but he doesn't come at this hour. If you have not truly conquered your own insecurities about trust, commitment, how it is represented in the relationship, if you have traumatic experience from the past, if you've seen something in your childhood that made you feel uneasy about it, your mind will immediately go into that. And if you have not addressed that while you're doing self work, you will most likely lash out at your partner. You will not give a partner a chance to communicate what happened. There could be a very good explanation of what happened, but it's going to be an immediate, like, oh, I knew it. I knew it. So this is what I see as a pattern among quite a few coaches that I have, is that as soon as there is difficulty, we try to latch on onto that uh, narrative that we had in our heads, that I'm not worthy of love. Why would he like me? Why would she trust me? And we latch on onto that instead of going, wait a second, yeah, he's late. I wonder if there is a reason. We don't immediately go into the opportunity, right? In the positive intelligence, it's saboteurs versus going to sage mode, meaning that you just stay open and curious to what it is at the face value instead of immediately just hitting all of the self sabotage over it. So a typical pattern would be jump into conclusions and then taking the anger out on your other significant other, instead of saying, I feel this way. I teach I statements. This is very important in relationship. I feel ignored. I feel that you should have called me. I feel that you did not listen to me when I was sharing something yesterday. Or I feel like you are prioritizing your football game over me on Sunday. Whatever that is, you start with I, because this
Mhm.
is a kinder invitation into fixing it and addressing it versus, oh, you are so and so. As soon as you start with you, people usually close up. Nobody likes to be attacked, nobody likes to be cornered.
Yeah, absolutely. Or confronted, "Why didn't you call me?"
Yeah.
That would be past Stacy, that would be exactly what I like, "Why didn't you call me if you were running late? Why didn't you?" "I worried about you." And it's just all my own insecurities coming
Yep.
through
Yes.
about,
Exactly.
I'm not worthy of being connected with, and, I'm not worthy of being communicated with, and, um or being considered, all of that stuff. And so, yeah, absolutely. Then that just turns into a fight. And then it's just, yeah, complete sabotage from there. Absolutely. Absolutely. What else would you like people to know about working with you, or if there's somebody watching this that are seeing themselves in what you're sharing, um, what would be some recommended steps for them to take to maybe explore this further?
Sure. Before I can give out a few steps to start with, I do want to emphasize just once again, we kind of used different phrases before, but I do want to remind that we are all work in progress and it's a lifelong journey to be improving, to be learning. However, when it comes to relationship and dating skills, this is a set of skills that can be learned in a certain duration of time. And the steps would be, I typically break it down into three phases. The first phase, it would always be turning inwards, self work, meaning that the obstacles that you are experiencing right now in your dating and relationship are most likely rooted in your childhood or your early life experiences or your past relationships or you going through some kind of trauma. So truly understanding why you're having current obstacles in your dating and relationship life at the moment helps to bring them up to the surface. Once they're up to the surface and we clearly know why why the obstacles are there, then we get to work on the mindset. And this is extremely critical element, as I'm sure you know, Stacey, as a self-love coach, is that we are our biggest limitations. I always say our mind is our best friend and our worst enemy. We'll be the first
For
ones
sure.
to criticize ourselves, right? So work on the mindset, making sure when it comes to dating and relationship, you have to go in with the mindset of abundance, mindset of offer. You don't go in attaching to the outcome. You go in with experiential curiosity, meaning that as you're sitting on that date, you're just meeting somebody for the first time. Ask yourself a question, like literally write this question down. That's the only thing you need to focus on that date. How am I feeling in the presence of this person? What am I observing about this person? Not go on a date and within 15 minutes, like already imagine the wedding and the color of the napkins that are going to be on the tables during the wedding. Because people do that. I'm not even making this up.
Ooh.
I'm not even making this up. People will absolutely do it. So and detaching from the outcome is challenging, yet very possible if you are coached through with a lot of great actionable steps and tools. And once the mindset is right, that's where you start getting that sense of like, oh, I've got the power. I've got the dating power. So your dating power is taking your knowledge from your learned lessons, the obstacles that we talked about once we heal the trauma, and then using the mindset that now you know, because people sometimes tell me, it's like, well, there's not enough people to date. I'm like, there's 8 billion of us in the world. I mean, there's enough people. I mean, yes, you have to filter through. Absolutely, you have to do the work. But when you go to the grocery store, you don't just grab the first item as soon as you walk in the store, right? Like you actually go through different sections and you pick up fruit and you see which one's the ripest and you pick yours, right? So it might be not the best analogy, but still
Don't
analogy.
go around squeezing people. That's actually
No, no,
not
no,
safe.
don't go around, absolutely.
That
Don't go
would be
around
bad.
squeezing people. That brings me to sexual discipline. That's important too. Don't be squeezing on a first date. But in any case, once the mindset is there and once you know what the problems were, this is where I give you clear step by step, like actionable things to do, meaning like approaching, reading the room, body language, how to sit, how to talk, what questions to ask. And when you're on a first date, to make yourself memorable, this is a great tip that I'm always happy to share, is that ask non-boring, spontaneous, deep questions. Deviate from this small talk. Get away from that
Yeah.
social script. What's your name? What do you do for work? Where do you live? This is boring. Because when you walk away from the date, that person who you are with will remember you only if you made that person feel somehow good about themselves. By asking interesting, deep questions of that person, you inevitably create emotional rhythm of this date. So she or he will be walking away thinking, oh, that was different. That was interesting. I think I want more. I want to explore what's there.
Yeah.
So becoming memorable is a skill. And once you go through all of these three phases, then it's the fun times. Then there's practice on the field. You go out and you date and collect feedback and try again until it works, until the right person comes around.
I want you to talk really quickly about chemistry and butterflies and how that isn't all it's cracked up to be. Because I think this is a common misconception that people are still operating from.
Yes, it's actually one of my, this is where I get extremely, maybe even a little bit too much passionate about trying to deconstruct this very stupid belief. And when I start coaching somebody, I ask them, what are you looking for? I want to find love. That's great. What is your vision of relationship? Well, I don't know, trust, respect, kindness. I'm like, no, that's not a vision. What are the intricacies? Where do you see yourself? How do you feel in this relationship? So people don't have a very clear relationship vision. So when they go on a date and if they experience a certain physical connection and they have these butterflies, they truly confuse. They mistaken this sensation in our physical body for love, when in reality, we should not be striving toward creating a love story. We should be focusing on building a life story, because life story is something that will consequently turn into a love story. But love is created because the butterflies is there just to confuse the hell out of us, usually. And I've seen this so many times. I've coached a client who was coaching, and he was going on dates, and then he had a date and they just hit it off physically. Like it was great chemistry, and he just assumed they're in love. And guess what happens after a month? Butterflies started fading away. They ran out of conversations because they were literally making out starting on the first date. And it ended. There was nothing else there except for the butterflies. And once the butterflies started fading away. So, and he stopped coaching because he thought he met the one. So he contacted me back and he's like, can I come back to coaching? I think I still need a little bit more skills. But this is how confusing. I'm not criticizing him because it is confusing in our minds and our bodies. It's
Absolutely.
like it just feels amazing, right? Except that we truly have to be aware that while it feels amazing right now, we still have to have difficult conversations, crucial conversation to understand the compatibility. Because if there's only butterflies but no compatibility, you can't make a life story into a love story. You will struggle. So it's completely overrated. It's way too romanticized. What we see in the movies is not real. You actually have to approach it from the point of becoming skillful in finding love, making it happen, not just looking for it somewhere, but making it happen proactively.
Yeah, and my therapist, she says that if you have butterflies, that it is most likely pattern recognition, not,
Exactly.
chemistry, and so you're actually just recognizing the type of person that they are, and it's familiar to your old programming and your old patterns, and watch out.
And
And,
most cases we replicate something from either our childhood or from before because it is familiar. So exactly, butterflies just show us, oh, this is something we know, this is great. But when it's something we don't know, our mind, unfortunately, that's why I say it's best friend and worst enemy, our mind will absolutely try to preserve the energy. So the mind will try to stay away from unfamiliar. So we kind of have to override it. But the patterns are very dangerous, very dangerous. And people don't realize, they think they're in different relationships when in reality they are with different people in the same relationship, repeating the same perpetual problems if they don't stop and break the cycle and do the work.
Yeah, I say, I've dated the same guy in a different meat suit.
Exactly.
I've had, 20 plus years of that. Different guy, same meat, or different uh meat suit, same dude. So, yeah, I get that. I get that. So, Irina, tell people if they want to work with you, where they can find you, and yeah, anything else that is important for them to know.
Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me here. So far, I have absolutely enjoyed the conversation and I appreciate the wonderful questions. As far as working with me, I'm looking for men right now to come into my group coaching as I am improving and building a new group coaching at the moment, and I'm super excited about it. So coming to get your dating superpower. It will be starting in months of May, and the details will be coming onto my website, and it is lovedandfulfilled.com. So my website will contain all that information, and I am happy to offer a free consultation for anybody who would like to at least understand what the obstacles are. And maybe I can give a little guidance going forward, if a person feels stuck. So one of the best ways, visit my website and book a call with me, free call, and I will dedicate an hour to providing some of my wisdom and happily listening to what are the obstacles that can be resolved.
Fantastic. You guys, that'll all be in the description below. So go check it out and tell her that you saw her here and that yeah. And I've really enjoyed this conversation too. I think it's important to have because we're still trying to myth bust the prince and princess and the tower and the rescuing and again with the chemistry and the butterflies, like this is what we've been taught from Hollywood and it's all not true. We've been sold a bag of goods and it is ruining our relationships, especially the ones with ourselves. So I love that you help the people in this way because I think it's imperative. And eventually it's going to help with the divorce rates, which is fantastic too.
That's my
Uh,
goal.
yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. So, okay, you guys, if you want to find Irina, again, it's all in the description below. Thank you so much for joining me. Again, I appreciate you, my friend. And I just want to remind you guys, it takes just a few short minutes a day of meditation, of active meditation, of journaling. There's a million modalities that you can do, all of them will lead to physically rewiring your brain for a more positive life. I promise you. I promise you that's how it works. And so, yeah, leave a comment below for Irina, and I'll tell her to come and answer. And I'll see you guys next time. I love you and have a great day, y'all.